stood at the observation window of Earth's orbital station and watched the ships arrive. They were not like anything humanity had built. These vessels were dark, smooth, and moved through space like predators hunting prey. 5 years had passed since humans first met other species from the stars. 5 years of learning that Earth was small, young, and weak compared to the great powers of the galaxy. The ships belonged to the. Even their name made people afraid. "They're here," Park said behind him. She was the chief scientist at the Human Defense Research Institute. Her voice was calm but could hear the fear beneath it. Everyone was afraid of the. Turned from the window. How many? 12 warships, one command vessel, pulled up a hologram display. The command vessel is 3 times larger than our biggest station. Studied the display. The Galactic Council had told humanity about the. They were the Council's champions, the strongest warriors in known space. For 10,000 years they had never lost a battle. Every species feared them. Every species obeyed them. "Why are they here?" asked, though he already knew the answer. His hands shook slightly as she worked the controls. "They sent a message. It's marked as formal, priority absolute." "Show me." The hologram changed. A figure appeared. It was tall, perhaps 8 feet, covered in armor that looked like it grew from its body. The face was hard, angular, with eyes that burned like hot metal. This was Warlord, champion of the. "Humans of Earth," the recording began. The voice was deep, powerful, and cold. "I am Warlord. I speak for the people. We issue you a challenge. This is trial by combat. This is the old way. Your species will send one champion. We will send one champion. They will face 3 trials. If your champion wins, your species remains free. If your champion loses, your species serves the forever." The message ended. Silence filled the room. Felt his stomach turn cold. "Forever." Nodded. She pulled up more data. "I researched their history. The trial by combat is ancient. Every species they challenged either refused or lost. The ones who refused were marked as cowards. The Council stopped trading with them, stopped helping them. They became isolated, weak. Eventually, they all submitted anyway. And the ones who accepted the challenge, they lost, every single one." His voice dropped to a whisper. 73 species over 10,000 years, all of them serve the now. They're not slaves exactly, but they're not free. They disappeared from independent existence. Walked back to the window. The ships hung in space like dark omens. "What happens if we refuse?" "The Council will treat us the same way. No trade, no technology sharing, no protection. We're too new, too weak. We need the Council. So we have to accept." "The Council hopes we'll refuse," said bitterly. "Earth is different. We ask too many questions. We don't follow their rules the way they want. If we refuse and become isolated, that solves their problem." Closed his eyes. In his past life, before becoming a diplomat, he had been a Marine. He had fought in Earth's last war before unification. He knew what impossible choices looked like. This was one of them. "How long do we have to answer?" "They're giving us 1 day to accept or refuse. If we accept, we have 30 days to prepare our champion." 1 day, 30 days, against an enemy that had never lost in 10,000 years. "I need to talk to them," said. Looked shocked. "Talk to them. They don't negotiate. They never negotiate." "I'm not going to negotiate. I'm going to accept." "You can't." "Someone has to." He turned to face her. "If I refuse, we become outcasts. If I wait, we look weak. But if I accept immediately, if I stand tall and show no fear, maybe that means something." "It means we're going to lose," said quietly. "Maybe," pulled on his formal diplomatic coat, "or maybe we surprise them." An hour later, stood in the station's main communication chamber. Every screen showed the command vessel. Every sensor focused on that dark ship. Representatives from the Galactic Council watched through remote connections. They wanted to see what humanity would do. Activated the broadcast. "Warlord, I am representative of Earth. I hear your challenge." The screen flickered. Warlord appeared. Those burning eyes focused on, "You will refuse. All weak species refuse at first." "I accept," said clearly. Silence, even through the screen, could see the surprise. Warlord leaned forward. "You accept. You understand what this means." "I understand. Earth will send one champion. You will send one champion, 3 trials. Winner takes all. If you lose, your species serves mine until the stars burn cold. If we win, Earth remains free and they leave our space." His face twisted into something that might have been a smile. It was not a kind expression. "No species has won in 10,000 years. Then we'll be the first." Something changed in his eyes. Was it respect? Interest? Couldn't tell. The warlord stood to his full height. "You have courage, human. Courage is good. It makes victory taste better. You have 30 days. Choose your champion well. Choose someone strong. Choose someone who will not break easily." The screen went dark. Stood alone in the chamber. His hands were shaking now. What had he done? He had just bet the entire human species on a challenge no one had ever won. Entered the chamber. The council representatives are shocked. Some of them are angry. They didn't expect you to accept. Good, let them be shocked. How are we going to win this? He looked at her. "I don't know, but we have 30 days to figure it out." Outside the window, the ships began to move. They formed a circle around Earth's orbital space. They would wait there, watching, judging, waiting to see what champion humanity would send to die. Far below, on Earth's surface, billions of people went about their lives. They didn't know yet. They didn't know that one person would soon stand between them and eternal servitude. They didn't know that the strongest warriors in the galaxy had come calling. But they would know soon. The whole world would know. And somewhere among those billions, a champion waited. Someone who would face the impossible. Someone who would stand against the. Just had to find them. The clock had started. 30 days. The entire future of humanity hung in the balance. General Jin Lee wanted to send soldiers. That made sense to him. There were warriors, so Earth should send its best warrior. He stood in the command center surrounded by hologram displays showing Earth's finest fighters, enhanced soldiers, special operations experts, people who had trained their entire lives for combat. "We'll hold trials," Jin said firmly. "Combat trials, physical trials. We'll test them until we find the strongest." Park shook her head. She had been studying data for 3 days without sleep. Her eyes were red, but her mind was sharp. "Strength won't be enough. They are naturally stronger than any human. Even our enhanced soldiers can't match them physically." "Then what do you suggest?" Jin's voice was hard. He was a military man. He understood tactics, weapons, training. This felt like a problem he should be able to solve with military thinking. "I suggest we look at the data differently." Pulled up a new display. It showed brain scans, genetic markers, psychological profiles. Saul found something interesting. Saul was young, barely 30, but she was brilliant. She worked with artificial intelligence and studied how human brains worked. She stepped forward and pointed at the displays. "I was analyzing human neurological data," Saul explained, "looking for any advantage we might have, and I found something. Humans have a unique trait that doesn't show up in other species the Council has studied." "What trait?" asked. He had been quiet, watching, listening. "We call it adaptive resilience. It's the ability to push beyond biological limits through willpower alone. When a human body says stop, the mind can say keep going. When pain says quit, determination says continue." Jin frowned. "All species have willpower." "Not like us." Saul changed the display. It showed comparison charts. "Other species stop when they reach their physical limits. It's biological, it's sensible. But humans, we have thousands of recorded cases of people doing impossible things, lifting cars off trapped children, walking for days with broken bones, surviving situations that should have killed them." Added more data. I've been studying human endurance records, marathon runners who keep going until their bodies shut down, mountain climbers who survive falls that should be fatal, disaster survivors who live for weeks with no food. The common factor isn't physical strength, it's mental strength. This trait, said slowly, where is it strongest? Saul hesitated. That's the interesting part. It's not strongest in soldiers. Soldiers are trained to push through pain, yes, but they're also trained when to stop, when to be tactical. The trait is strongest in ordinary people who faced impossible situations and had no choice but to continue. Jin looked skeptical. You want to send an ordinary person against the champion. I want to send someone who has adaptive resilience, Saul corrected. Someone who has proven they won't break, no matter what. The argument continued for days. Jin wanted his soldiers. Saul and wanted someone different. Listened to both sides. Finally, he made a decision. We'll hold open trials, he announced. Anyone can volunteer, military or civilian. We'll test them for this adaptive resilience trait. We'll test their bodies, yes, but we'll also test their minds, their will. Thousands volunteered. Soldiers came, eager to represent humanity. Athletes came, confident in their abilities. Scientists came, thinking strategy would win. And ordinary people came too, people who heard the call and felt something inside them respond. The trials were brutal. Physical tests pushed volunteers to their limits. Mental tests bombarded them with fear, stress, exhaustion. Many quit, many failed. The soldiers performed well, but something was missing. They were strong, but they knew when to stop. They knew when enough was enough. Then Han stepped forward. He was 35 years old, average height, average build. He worked construction in Seoul. There was nothing remarkable about him at first glance. He filled out the volunteer forms in simple handwriting. Under special qualifications, he wrote only one word, Mars. Saw the form and pulled his records. Her eyes widened. Saul, look at this. Saul read the file. Her hands started shaking. We need to test him right now. Han had been on Mars 5 years ago. He was part of a construction crew building new habitats. He wasn't a colonist. He wasn't important. He was just a worker. Then disaster struck. A massive solar storm hit the colony. The shields failed. The adults evacuated to the deep shelters, but there was a problem. 47 children had been on a school trip to the surface domes. The transport broke down. They were stranded. The radiation was coming. Every adult was already in the shelters. The doors would seal automatically in 10 minutes. Anyone outside would die. Han had been in the shelter. He was safe. He had followed procedure. Then he heard about the children over the radio. He had a choice, stay safe or go back. He went back. For 6 months, Han kept those children alive. The main colony couldn't reach them. The radiation was too strong. Supply ships couldn't land. Han rationed food that should have lasted 2 weeks. He recycled water from every source. He kept the power running by hand when the systems failed. He taught the children, kept them calm, gave them hope. 15 children died anyway. Radiation sickness, equipment failure. Han had to bury them with his own hands. The other 32 survived because Han refused to let them die. When rescue finally came, Han weighed 60 pounds less than when he started. His body was damaged from radiation exposure. His hands were from manual repairs. But he was alive. The children were alive. Saul ran Han through every test. Physical tests showed he was average, maybe slightly below average now because of the Mars damage. But the mental tests told a different story. They subjected him to simulated torture. He endured it. They bombarded him with fear scenarios. He walked through them. They pushed him until other volunteers would scream or break down. Han just kept going. His heart rate stayed steady. His brain scans showed something remarkable. He's compartmentalizing the pain, Saul explained to the others. His pain receptors work. He feels everything. but he's putting it in a box in his mind and choosing to ignore it. He's not blocking it out. He's acknowledging it and deciding it doesn't matter. Can he win? Asked. I don't know if anyone can win, Saul said honestly. But if adaptive resilience is our advantage, Han has more of it than anyone I've ever seen. Jin wasn't happy. He wanted to send Commander Park, an enhanced soldier with a perfect record, but even Jin had to admit the test results were clear. Han had something others didn't. They brought Han into a private room. Saul and Jin all sat across from him. Han looked uncomfortable in the formal setting. He was more used to construction sites than government buildings. Do you understand what we're asking you to do? Said gently. Han nodded. Fight the champion, save humanity. You'll probably die, Jin said bluntly. They have never lost. They're stronger, faster, more durable than any human. I know. Then why volunteer? Han was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but steady. On Mars, I had to watch children die. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. I still hear them sometimes. I still see their faces. He looked up, meeting their eyes. If I can stop that from happening to every child on Earth, then I have to try. Even if I fail, even if I die, I have to try. Wiped her eyes. Saul nodded slowly. Even Jin looked moved. You're our champion, said. We have 20 days left to prepare you. Han stood, he bowed formally. I won't let you down. As he left, pulled up more data. There's something else, she said quietly. I've been analyzing communications. They've been studying human history extensively. What are they looking for? Asked. I don't know, but they keep focusing on specific things. Human endurance records, survival stories, cases where humans did impossible things. She looked worried. It's like they're looking for something specific, like they knew what they'd find. That's crazy, Jin said. Why would they challenge us if they knew we had this trait? No one had an answer. Outside, the ships waited in orbit, watching. And somewhere on the command vessel, Warlord watched the data about Earth's champion. When he saw Han's name and history, something flickered across his face. It might have been satisfaction. It might have been sadness. It was hard to tell. So they chose him, said to his advisors. The one who wouldn't stop, the one who kept going when everything said die. Is he the one? An advisor asked. Stared at the data. We'll see. In 20 days we'll finally see. The ancient world was called Judgment. It had been used for trials like this for thousands of years. The planet itself was neutral, monitored by sensors from every council species. No one could cheat here. No one could interfere. Whatever happened would be witnessed by the entire galaxy. Han stood in the transport ship and looked down at the planet. It was gray and cold, with deep canyons and high mountains. Somewhere down there he would face Warlord, 3 trials over 3 days. If he won all 3, humanity stayed free. If he lost even one, humanity would serve the forever. How are you feeling? O asked. She was his medical support, assigned to keep him alive between trials. She was young, skilled, and clearly worried. She had been checking his vital signs constantly since they left Earth. Nervous, Han admitted. There was no point lying. That's normal. Anyone would be nervous. Are you nervous? Smiled slightly, terrified, but I'm not the one who has to face. The ship landed on a flat plain. In the distance, Han could see another ship landing. The vessel, his heart beat faster. This was real. This was happening. Bay, the navigator who had flown them here, put a hand on Han's shoulder. The entire human race is watching. Billions of people. They're all counting on you. That's not helping, Han said, but he smiled a little. Sorry, what I mean is, you're not alone. Even if you're the only one down there, you carry all of us with you. Han nodded. He understood. He stepped off the ship onto the gray soil of Judgment. Warlord emerged from the ship. He was massive. Even knowing he would be tall, Han wasn't prepared for the reality. 8 feet of armored muscle. Eyes that glowed like molten metal. Every movement was power and grace combined. This was a being built for war. Between them, a council arbiter appeared as a hologram. It spoke in a flat, neutral voice. The trial by combat begins now. 3 trials, 3 days. First trial, strength. You will fight until one yields or falls. Lethal force is permitted but not required. Han swallowed hard. Fight this. How could anyone fight this? The hologram vanished, and Han faced each other across 50 feet of empty ground. You are small, said. His voice carried easily across the distance. Why did your people send someone so small? Because I don't quit, Han replied. Tilted his head, studying him. Then he moved. It was faster than Han expected. One moment was standing still. The next he was there, right in front of Han. A hand grabbed Han's shoulder and threw him. Han flew 20 feet and crashed into the ground. Pain exploded through his body. Ribs cracked. Air left his lungs. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't move. Everything hurt. Get up, he told himself. Get up. Han struggled to his knees, watched him not moving, waiting. Han stood, his legs shook, his ribs screamed, but he stood. Nodded slowly, then he moved again. For 2 hours it continued, would strike. Han would fall, Han would get up, over and over. Wasn't trying to kill him, he was testing him, seeing when he would quit, seeing when he would yield. Han's body broke, bones cracked, muscles tore. Blood ran down his face from cuts he couldn't remember getting. His left arm hung useless. His right leg barely supported his weight. But he got up every time. He got up. Why? Finally asked. Why do you keep standing? You cannot win. You cannot hurt me. Why not yield? Han spat blood. Because if I quit, everyone loses. If I keep going, there's still a chance. There is no chance. I am stronger. Then prove it. Keep hitting me until I can't get up anymore. Something changed in his expression. He looked at the human struggling to stand and saw something he hadn't expected. The trial ends. You did not yield. You did not fall permanently. The trial is a draw. The arbiter hologram reappeared. Trial of strength, draw. Both champions survived to trial 2. Han collapsed, rushed out with medical equipment. She worked quickly, injecting nanomedicine, sealing wounds, stabilizing bones. You're insane, she whispered. Completely insane. Did we win? It was a draw. That's never happened before. Han closed his eyes. A draw, not a loss, he'd take it. That night in his medical tent, Han lay awake. His body was being repaired by advanced medicine, but it still hurt. Everything hurt. And tomorrow was the second trial. The next day, Han could barely walk. The medicine had healed the worst damage, but his body was exhausted. Looked the same as yesterday. Perfect. Unharmed. Ready. Trial 2, the arbiter announced. The trial of mind. You will each enter a mental maze. The maze is generated from your own fears and doubts. You must reach the center. There is no time limit. The first to reach the center wins. If neither reaches the center within 7 days, the trial is a draw. They placed helmets on both champions. The world went dark. Then Han opened his eyes in a different place. He was on Mars, in the colony. The children were screaming, the storm was coming. But this time it was different. This time he couldn't save them. Every door he tried was locked. Every path led nowhere. The children cried for help and he couldn't reach them. He watched them die, one by one, and it was his fault. This isn't real, Han told himself. This is the maze. This is my fear. But it felt real. The screams felt real. The guilt felt real. He forced himself to move forward. Through the colony, past the dying children. It hurt worse than blows. It hurt in a place that medicine couldn't heal. But he moved. The maze changed. Now he was on Earth, but Earth was burning. The had one. Cities fell. People screamed. And it was because he failed, because he wasn't strong enough, because he couldn't win. You can't save them, voices whispered. You couldn't save the children on Mars. You can't save the children on Earth. You're not a hero, you're just a man who got lucky once." Han fell to his knees. Maybe they were right. Maybe he was fooling himself. He was just a construction worker. What made him think he could stand against the... He stayed there for hours, or maybe days. Time didn't work right in the maze. Then he remembered something. On Mars, when things were darkest, when the children were crying and he had no answers, he had made a choice. He chose to keep trying, not because he knew he would succeed, but because trying was better than quitting. That's all this was, another choice, get up or stay down. Han stood. The maze tried to stop him. It showed him every failure, every fear, every doubt, but he walked through them, not because they didn't hurt. They hurt terribly, but he chose to walk anyway. Outside the maze watched the monitors. "He's been in there for 3 days, she said. Came out in 6 hours. Saul was there too, monitoring the brain scans. "Look at his neural activity. He's experiencing extreme psychological stress, but he's still moving forward. His pain centers are active, but he's compartmentalizing again. How long can he keep this up? I don't know. No one's ever lasted this long in a mental maze." On the 5th day, Han reached the center. He collapsed the moment he exited the maze. His body was fine, but his mind was exhausted. He had lived through every nightmare, every fear, every doubt. "Trial of mind, human champion wins," the arbiter announced. Stood nearby, he looked at Han with an expression that might have been respect. "You walked through hell for 5 days. Why?" "Because the trial wasn't over," Han said weakly. "Most species break in hours. You endured for days." "I had to." That knight spoke with his advisors through a private channel. "He is adapting. Every trial he adapts." "Is he the one?" "Perhaps. The 3rd trial will show us." The 3rd trial was survival. They dropped both champions on a hostile moon. No supplies, no tools, just themselves in a harsh environment. The one who survived longest won. The moon had toxic air, freezing temperatures, and predators. Han built a shelter from rocks. He found water trapped in ice. He avoided the predators. He survived. But on the 4th day, he heard something. A sound like pain. He followed it carefully. Was trapped. A rock slide had pinned his leg. That was strong enough to free himself eventually, but it would take time. Time he might not have. A predator was circling, smelling blood. Han had a choice. He could leave. Let's struggle. Maybe that would free himself in time. Maybe he wouldn't. If died, Han won by default. Or Han could help. He thought about the children on Mars. He thought about doing the right thing even when it was hard. He thought about what kind of person he wanted to be. Han picked up a rock and threw it at the predator. The creature turned toward him. He ran, leading it away from. Once the predator was gone, he came back. "Why?" asked, confused. "You could win, you could let me die." Han started moving rocks, helping to free the leg. "Because that's not who I am. I don't win by watching someone die when I could help." "This makes no sense. We are enemies." "Right now we're 2 people on a hostile moon. I help people. That's what I do." Something in his expression broke. Something ancient and hard suddenly seemed uncertain. Wu Nam had been studying old texts for 6 days without sleep. He was someone who studied alien cultures and their histories. The Galactic Council had given humanity access to their archives, and Wu had been searching through records since the challenge began. There was something wrong, something that didn't make sense. "Look at this," he said too. She was an intelligence officer trained to find patterns and secrets. She had been helping him search through the data. Leaned over the screen. "What am I looking at?" The challenge history. 73 species challenged over 10,000 years. They all lost or refused. "We know this already." "Yes, but look at what happened after. Every species that refused was isolated by the Council. They became weak. Eventually they submitted to the anyway, asking to serve them." "That's terrible but expected." "Here's what's strange. the species that accepted the challenge and lost, that took them as servants, but look at how they're treated. Wu pulled up more data. They're not slaves, they're protected, given resources, educated, to take care of them. Frowned. Why would warriors take care of their defeated enemies? Exactly, it doesn't make sense, unless… Wu opened another file. I found something in the old texts, ancient writings from before they became the Council's champions. The text was difficult to read. It had been translated multiple times through different languages, but Wu had been working on it for days. 10,000 years ago they were dying, not from war or disease, from something called genetic stagnation. They had evolved to be perfect warriors, perfect physiology, perfect instincts, but they couldn't adapt anymore, couldn't change, couldn't grow. How does a species die from being too perfect? Evolution needs variation, needs weakness, needs failure. They were so superior that they stopped evolving. Their birth rate dropped. Their children were born without purpose, without drive. They were slowly fatting away. His eyes widened, so they started challenging other species, looking for what? Wu pulled up the final piece of text. His hands were shaking, looking for something they lost. The text is poetic, but I think I translated it correctly. It says, "We seek the fire that burns in those who should fall but don't. We seek the strength that comes from weakness. When the weak stand unbroken, the strong will kneel." They're not challenging species to conquer them, said slowly. They're challenging species to find something. Something they need, something they lost. Wu looked at her. What do humans have that they don't? We're weaker, smaller, less advanced. But we keep going. We face impossible odds and we don't quit. We call it stubbornness, hope, determination. But maybe it's something more. Maybe it's the ability to suffer and choose to continue anyway. Grabbed her communication device. We need to tell right now. On the moon, Han had freed's leg. The warrior stood, testing his weight. The leg was injured but functional. He stared at Han like he was seeing something impossible. "You helped me," said. "Your enemy, in a trial where my death would give you victory." Han was breathing hard. Helping had taken effort and he was exhausted. "I told you, that's not who I am." "Who are you then?" "Someone who helps, even when it's hard, even when it doesn't make sense." Was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked Han. He removed his helmet. Beneath the armor's face was almost human, older, tired, sad. "Do you know what we are?" asked quietly. We are perfect, perfect warriors, perfect physiology, perfect instincts. We have been perfect for 10,000 years. That sounds good. It is death, sat down on a rock. His movements were heavy, burdened. We cannot fail, so we cannot learn. We cannot suffer, so we cannot grow. We cannot face hardship, so we cannot find purpose. We are perfect and we are dying. Han sat down too, his body hurt. The cold moon wind cut through his thin clothing, but he listened. 10,000 years ago we realized what was happening. Our children were born without drive, without passion. They had everything, so they wanted nothing. We were fatting, so we made a choice. We would search the galaxy for what we lost. What did you lose? The ability to struggle, to feel purpose, to choose to continue when everything says stop. Looked at Han. We challenge species not to conquer them. We challenge them to test them, to see if they have what we need. And for 10,000 years, every species either broke or refused. Why did you take them as servants if they failed? To preserve them, to study them, to hope that maybe one day they would show us what we couldn't find. His voice was full of old pain. 73 species, thousands of years, and none of them had it. They were strong or weak, smart or simple, brave or cowardly, but none of them could do what you do. What do I do? You break, but you don't quit. You suffer, but you continue. You fail, but you try again. You helped your enemy when victory was within reach. You chose mercy over winning. Stood. You have what we lost, what we cannot teach, what we cannot learn. You have the strength that comes from weakness. Han didn't know what to say. He just stared at this ancient warrior, this perfect being, who was admitting to being incomplete. "Trial 3 is over," said. "I yield." "What?" "You won, not through surviving longer, not through being stronger. You won because you showed me what I needed to see." Put his helmet back on. "The trials are complete. 2 draws and 1 human victory. By ancient law, humanity wins." Back on Judgment, in the main chamber where the trials were being observed, chaos erupted. The council representatives were shouting. This had never happened. The never yielded. Received Wu's information at the same moment. He read it quickly, his mind racing. It all made sense now. They weren't testing for strength. They were testing for something else entirely. The Arbiter hologram appeared. Its voice was confused, uncertain. "Warlord has yielded Trial 3. The human champion wins 2 trials. Humanity wins the challenge." Ship landed near Han. The Warlord emerged, followed by 12 other. They were the elders, the leaders of their species. They approached Han, who stood exhausted and confused. Removed his helmet again. All the elders removed theirs. They looked at Han with expressions of hope, sadness, and something like relief. "For 10,000 years we searched," said. "We challenged 73 species. We tested them, preserved them, studied them, but none of them could show us the way back." "Back to what?" "To being alive, to having purpose, to feeling struggle and growth and meaning." Knelt. The other elders knelt. 12 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy kneeling before a human construction worker. "We do not ask for mercy," said. "By the ancient laws we lost. Humanity wins. They will leave your space and never return if that is your wish." Han looked at these beings. These perfect, superior, ancient warriors who had forgotten how to feel alive. He thought about the children on Mars. He thought about purpose and meaning and what makes life worth living. "I have a different idea," Han said slowly. On Earth received a transmission. She read it 3 times, not believing her eyes. Then she started laughing. Saul looked at her, concerned. "What is it?" Han, he didn't just win the challenge, wiped tears from her eyes. He changed everything. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. Never in their history had they seen anything like this. Though the undefeated champions had yielded, but what they did next was even more shocking. Warlord stood before the council. Behind him stood the human Han, still wearing simple clothes, still looking like an ordinary person. "The make an official request," announced. "We ask permission to integrate with human society, not as conquerors, not as servants, but as students. We wish to learn from them what we forgot. We wish to remember how to struggle, how to grow, how to be alive." The council erupted in shock. Some species objected, some were afraid. But humanity had won, and by ancient law they could choose their own path. Stood and spoke. "Earth accepts this request. They are welcome among us. We will teach them what they wish to learn, and perhaps they can teach us as well." One council member asked the obvious question. "What happened to the... Where did they go? They disappeared after the challenge." Looked at Han and smiled slightly. It was the first genuine smile anyone had seen from in thousands of years. "We disappeared into something new," said. "We disappeared into hope." 1 year had passed since the trial on Judgment. Song stood on the bridge of Earth's first deep space exploration vessel. She was the captain, leading humanity's expansion into the stars. But what made her crew special was that half of them were. "Captain, we're approaching the nebula," her first officer reported. He was named. A year ago, he had been a warrior. Now he was learning to explore instead of conquer. "Take us in slowly," ordered. "Science team, start your scans." The science team was mixed, humans and working together. It had been strange at first. They were so much stronger, so much more capable physically, but they were learning that strength wasn't everything. On Earth, sat in her office at the historical archives. She was a historian, documenting everything that happened. She had been given the task of recording the integration of the into human society. It was the most important event in human history, and someone needed to write it down properly. She reviewed her notes from the past year. The integration hadn't been easy. Many humans were afraid of the at first. These were beings who had dominated the galaxy for thousands of years. These were warriors who had never lost. How could anyone trust them? But they had been patient. They had come to Earth not as conquerors but as students. They wanted to learn what they had forgotten. Remembered the first few months. They had tried to understand human culture. They studied human history, human art, human stories. They were particularly fascinated by stories of struggle, stories where people faced impossible odds and kept going anyway. One elder had said something that stuck with. We read your stories of heroes and we realized something. Your heroes are not the strongest or the fastest. Your heroes are the ones who get up when they fall. We forgot how to fall. We forgot how to get back up. They began working alongside humans, not in positions of power. They started at the bottom, learning, growing, experiencing failure for the first time in thousands of years. Warlord himself had chosen to work in construction, with Han. Pulled up a video from 3 months ago. It showed a construction site in Seoul. Han was there, back at his old job. Next to him stood 8 feet of armored warrior, learning how to pour concrete. No, like this, Han said in the video, showing the proper technique. You have to feel when it's right. Tried, he was too strong at first, working too fast. The concrete cracked. He stared at his failure and something like wonder crossed his face. I failed, he said. Yeah, try again. Tried again and again. On the 5th try he got it right. The look on his face was pure joy. I did it. I struggled and then I succeeded. That's how we learn, Han said simply. Smiled watching the video. That moment captured everything. The strongest warriors in the galaxy learning that failure was not weakness. It was the path to growth. The changes went both ways. Humans learned from the two, their technology, their knowledge, their perspective from thousands of years of existence. But more than that, humans learned what it meant to be superior and still feel empty. It's a warning, had said in one interview. To show us that having everything doesn't mean anything. Purpose comes from struggle. Meaning comes from choosing to continue when you could stop. We can't forget that as we grow stronger. The 73 species that had served the faced a choice. They released them all, gave them their freedom. Many chose to stay with the, now curious to see what their former masters would become. Others returned to their own worlds, carrying stories of the strange humans who taught warriors how to be alive. The Galactic Council watched everything carefully. Some council members were angry. The balance of power had shifted. Humanity was no longer weak and young. They had thee as willing partners. Some species feared what this meant. But others saw opportunity. If they could change, could learn, could grow, then maybe everyone could. Maybe the galaxy didn't have to be about power and dominance. Maybe it could be about something more. Spent most of his time dealing with council politics now. It was exhausting, but he remembered something Han had said to him once. Every day is a choice. Get up or stay down, keep going or quit. I choose to keep going. Chose to keep going too. On the deep space vessel's crew made a discovery. They found a derelict ship from an ancient civilization. The crew members wanted to destroy it according to old protocols, but the human crew members suggested exploring it, learning from it. This is not our way, said. Unknown things are threats. Or they're opportunities, replied. Let's find out together. They explored the ship. It was dangerous. Some areas were unstable. At one point, a collapse trapped 3 crew members, 2 and 1 human. They were strong enough to break free easily, but the human was trapped under debris they couldn't move alone. The 2 immediately began clearing the debris from their human teammate. They worked together, struggled together, succeeded together. When they finally freed the human, they were exhausted but smiling. "We saved someone," one of them said with wonder. "Not by being strong, by choosing to help." Back on Earth, Han still worked construction. He had been offered positions in government, in the military, in research. Everyone wanted the man who saved humanity to be someone important, but Han knew who he was. "I'm not a hero," he told reporters who still occasionally found him. "I'm just someone who keeps working." But understood. "That's exactly why you are a hero," the warlord said. They were working together on a new building, a community center that would serve both humans and heroes. In our old stories were warriors who never fell. Heroes in your stories are people who fall and get back up. We the wrong thing for 10,000 years. "What do you worship now?" Han asked. Was quiet for a moment. He looked at the building they were constructing together. Purpose, growth, the choice to continue. These things are worth more than strength. Completed her historical record. She titled it simply, "The Year of Integration," but she included a final section called "What We Learned." In it she wrote, "They came to challenge us. They were stronger, faster, more advanced in every way. By all logic, we should have lost. But we showed them something they had forgotten. We showed them that strength is not the absence of weakness. Strength is the choice to continue despite weakness." They disappeared after the trial, not through death, not through defeat. They disappeared through transformation. They chose to become something new. They chose to join us in our struggle, our growth, our constant effort to be better. When people ask what happened to I tell them the truth. They found what they were looking for. They found the fire that burns in those who fall but don't quit. They found purpose in struggle. They found meaning in choice. And in finding these things, they didn't become less than what they were. They became more. They became complete. The strongest of their kind challenged humans and disappeared forever. But they didn't disappear into darkness. They disappeared into light, into hope, into the simple, powerful act of choosing to keep going when everything says stop. They disappeared into us, and we are all stronger for it. Save the document. Future generations would read it. They would know what happened. They would understand that the greatest victory wasn't defeating an enemy. It was showing them a better way. On the construction site, Han and finished their day's work. The sun was setting over Seoul. The city was different now, walked alongside humans, two species learning from each other. "Do you ever regret it?" Han asked. "Giving up your supremacy, your perfection?" Looked at his hands. They were now from work, from struggle, from failure and success mixed together. "We were perfect," he said, "but we were not alive. Now we fail sometimes. We struggle always. We doubt often, and it is glorious." That's the human experience. That is the living experience. We were dead for 10,000 years and didn't know it. You taught us how to live. They walked together toward the transit station. Tomorrow they would return and build more. They would struggle with problems, solve some, fail at others, and try again. It was ordinary. It was simple. It was everything. Across the galaxy, word spread. They had changed. Other species began to question their own paths. If the strongest could learn to value weakness, if the perfect could embrace imperfection, then what else was possible? The galaxy was changing, slowly, carefully, but changing. And it all started because one human refused to quit. Because Han, construction worker from Seoul, chose to get up when he fell, chose to help when he could have one, chose to show mercy when he could have taken revenge. He didn't save humanity through strength. He saved them through choice. The same choice every human makes every day. The choice to keep going, the choice to try, the choice to hope. That choice changed everything. Song's ship continued deeper into space. Her mixed crew worked together, exploring, learning, growing. They would face dangers, they would struggle. Some missions would fail, but they would keep going. Because that's what living beings do. They struggle, they choose, they continue. They had searched for 10,000 years for species that could teach them this lesson. They challenged 73 civilizations. And finally, in humanity, they found what they needed. Not because humans were stronger, but because humans never stopped trying to be better. That was the real human strength. Not power, not perfection, but the endless, stubborn, beautiful refusal to give up. The constant choice to stand up one more time, to try one more attempt, to hope one more day. They disappeared into that hope, and in doing so, they finally found what they had lost. They found life.